Hey guys, tonight we slip into the electric hum of 1922nd America, where the air crackles with jazz and the promise of something new. Picture yourself stepping onto a bustling city street, the scent of fresh asphalt and cigarette smoke curling around you. Horns blare from Model Ts, and women in short, fringed dresses, flappers, they call them, laugh as they dodge street vendors hawking apples. Neon signs flicker, tempting you into jazz clubs where saxophones wail. It's a decade of wild energy, but don't get too cozy, you probably won't survive the dance marathons that last for days. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on a city sidewalk in, say, New York or Chicago, 1925, and the world feels like it's moving at double speed. Skyscrapers loom overhead. Their steel skeletons a testament to America's newfound obsession with reaching the clouds. The 1922nd, often called the Roaring Twenties, mark a time when the U.S. population shifts. More folks live in cities than rural areas for the first time, a fact cemented by the 1920 census. That's right, over half of America's 106 million people are now urban dwellers, and you're one of them, caught in the swirl of progress. Streetcars rumble past, their bells clanging, while newsboys shout headlines about Babe Ruth's latest home run or some politician's Prohibition scandal. The air's thick with possibility, but also with coal dust. Good luck keeping your shirt clean. Now, let's talk about that quirky tidbit. City folks are obsessed with dance crazes. You're dodging couples practicing the Charleston right on the sidewalk, their knees flapping like overexcited birds. It's not just a dance. It's a rebellion against the stuffy Victorian era your parents clung to. Clubs host dance marathons where couples shuffle for hours, sometimes days, collapsing in heaps for a chance at a cash prize. Historians still argue whether these marathons were a celebration of freedom or a desperate grab for money in a shaky economy. Either way, you're tempted to join, but your feet are already sore from dodging pushy vendors. The city's a sensory overload. You smell hot dogs from a cart, hear the clack of typewriters from open office windows, and see kids playing stickball in alleys. Department stores like Macy's tempt you with window displays of shiny new vacuum cleaners. Electricity's the future, and everyone wants a piece. But it's not all glamour. You pass a tenement, where families cram into tiny apartments, laundry strung across fire escapes. The gap between rich and poor is stark. While millionaires sip champagne in penthouses, others scrape by, hoping for a factory job. Speaking of which, you're late for a night out, someone's whispering about a speakeasy nearby, and you're curious. The city's alive, and you're right in its heart. You weave through crowds, noticing how everyone's dressed like they're auditioning for a movie. Men in sharp suits tip their fedoras, while women's bobbed hair bounces as they strut. Fashion's a big deal gone, are the corsets and long skirts of your grandma's day. You chuckle, imagining her fainting at the sight of a flapper's knee-high hemline. Joke number 1. Maybe the real rebellion was making stockings roll down instead of up. The energy's infectious, though. You pass a barbershop where men debate politics, their voices rising over the snip of scissors. Calvin Coolidge is president, known for his do-nothing style, which suits the decade's laissez-faire vibe. Government's staying out of business, and the economy's booming, at least for now. As night falls, the city glows, streetlights cast shadows, and you hear a saxophone's mournful cry from a club. Jazz is everywhere, born from African-American communities, and now the soundtrack of the decade. You're drawn to it, but first, you pause at a newsstand. Headlines scream about gangsters like Al Capone, who's probably sipping the same illegal whiskey you're hoping to find. Prohibition's in full swing, turning law-abiding folks into rebels. Joke number 2. The only thing drier than the law is the humor in a temperance meeting. You pocket a newspaper, feeling the weight of the era, progress and rebellion, wealth and struggle, all mixed together like a cocktail you're not sure you should drink. The streets are stage, and you're part of the show. You pass a group of kids sneaking cigarettes, their laughter echoing. The 1922nd are about breaking rules, but not everyone's thrilled. Older folks grumble about kids these days, sounding like every generation ever. You smirk, thinking how your phone-obsessed descendants will get the same complaints. The city's a melting pot. 2 immigrants from Italy, Ireland, and beyond add their voices to the din. You hear Yiddish, Italian, and English all in one block. It's chaotic, but it's alive. You're heading toward that speakeasy now, the promise of jazz and a stiff drink pulling you forward. The night's young and the city's wide awake. You wake to the soft clatter of milk bottles being dropped on your doorstep, the dawn light creeping through lace curtains in a modest suburban home. It's morning in 1922nd America, somewhere outside the city's hustle, maybe Montclair, New Jersey, or a tidy Chicago suburb. The air smells of fresh-cut grass and brewing coffee, a far cry from the urban coal dust you dodged last night. Suburban life is booming. The 1922nd see a surge in planned communities, with over 10 million Americans now living in these quieter pockets, thanks to streetcar lines and new roads. You stretch, hearing the creak of your wooden bed frame, and glance at a shiny new electric clock on the nightstand. Electricity's changing everything your home's wired up, and you're secretly proud of the humming refrigerator downstairs. As you shuffle to the kitchen, you notice the quirky side of suburban progress. Your neighbour's obsessed with mail-order catalogues. Sears and Roebuck's thick book sits on every coffee table, offering everything from sewing machines to entire house kits. Yep, you can buy a bungalow in a box. You chuckle, imagining assembling a home like a kid's toy set. Joke number 1. If you mess up the instructions, you're sleeping in the garage. Historians still argue whether these catalogues sparked consumer culture or just fed it, but either way, you're tempted to order a new toaster for kicks. The kitchen's a cozy hub. Your mom, or maybe you're the one in the apron, is frying eggs on a gas stove, the sizzle mixing with birdsong outside. The radio's on low, some preacher droning about temperance, but you're more interested in the bacon's aroma. Suburban homes are getting modern. Indoor plumbing's standard now, unlike the outhouses still lingering in rural towns. You pour coffee from a percolator, its bitter warmth grounding you. The table's set with mismatched china, and you flip through a newspaper left by your dad. Ads for electric irons and vacuum cleaners promise to free the housewife, though you smirk, knowing the chores still pile up. Outside, kids race bicycles down tree-lined streets, their laughter echoing. Suburbia's designed for families, with neat lawns and picket fences straight out of a magazine. You step onto the porch, feeling the cool morning air, and wave to a neighbour watering her garden. She's probably gossiping about the new couple who threw a wild bridge party last night. Card games are the suburban equivalent of a speakeasy's thrill. You're not judging. You've got a deck of cards stashed for tonight's game. The suburbs feel safe, orderly, but there's a restless edge. Young folks like you crave the city's jazz clubs, even if it's just a train ride away. You head to the garage, where a shiny Ford Model T waits your family's pride and joy. Cars are everywhere now. By 1925, over 17 million are registered in the US, and suburbs are built around them. You crank the engine, grinning at the clunky roar. Joke number 2. It's less a car and more a temperamental horse with wheels. Driving to the local market, you pass new houses popping up like dandelions. Construction's a constant hum. Suburbia's growing fast, fueled by post-World War I prosperity. But not everyone's thriving. You spot a handyman fixing a fence. His worn clothes a reminder that the wealth isn't spread evenly. At the market, you grab a basket, weaving past shelves, stocked with canned goods and fresh produce. Kellogg's cornflakes are a hot item breakfast cereals, the new fad, promising convenience. You overhear 2 women debating whether bobbed hair is scandalous or practical. The 1922nd are loosening up, even here. You pay with a crisp dollar bill, noticing the clerk's new cash register an electric marvel that dings with every sale. Back home, you unpack groceries, thinking about the day ahead. Maybe you'll mow the lawn or tinker with that radio set you bought on a whim. The suburbs aren't just about comfort, they're a statement. You're living the American dream, or at least the 1922nd version of it. But there's tension. Some folks miss the farm life they left behind, while others, like you, eye the city's bright lights. You glance at a magazine ad for a vacuum cleaner, promising more time for leisure. Leisure for what? Another bridge game or sneaking off to a speakeasy. Joke number 3. The suburbs might tame you, but they can't tame your Charleston moves. As the morning sun climbs, you sip your coffee, hearing the distant whistle of a train bound for the city. You're tempted to hop on, but for now, suburbia's quiet rhythm holds you. You're deep in the clang and grind of a factory now, the air thick with oil and sweat. It's midday in 1922nd America, and you're standing on a cavernous shop floor, maybe in Detroit or Pittsburgh, where steel and ambition collide. The factory whistle's scream still rings in your ears, signaling the start of your shift. America's industrial boom is no joke by 1925. Manufacturing output has doubled since the war, churning out everything from cars to radios. You're part of it, a cog in the machine that's making the US the world's economic powerhouse. The conveyor belt hums, and you tighten bolts on a car frame, your hands moving fast to keep up with Ford's assembly line, a game changer that slashed production time. Here's the quirky bit. Some factories blast music to keep workers awake. A tinny phonograph in the corner scratches out "Sweet Georgia Brown," barely audible over the clatter. You smirk, wondering if it's supposed to make you bolt faster. Joke number 1. Maybe they think jazz hands tighten screws better. Historians still argue whether these tunes boosted productivity or just annoyed everyone, but you're too focused to care. Your arms ache, and the guy next to you mutters about needing a smoke break. You nod, feeling the rhythm of the line pulling you along like a tide. The factory's a beast. Sparks fly from welders, and the heat makes your shirt stick. Overhead, belts and pulleys whir, driving machines that stamp metal or weave cloth. You're lucky to have this job. Millions flock to cities for work, and factories employ over 12 million by mid-decade, but it's grueling. Shifts stretch 10, sometimes 12 hours, 6 days a week. You glance at the clock, its hands crawling. Pays decent, about $5 a day for skilled work, but you're saving for a radio or maybe a used Model T. The guy across from you, an Italian immigrant, hums a folk song, his accent thick when he asks for a wrench. Immigrants power these floors, though some old-timers grumble about foreigners stealing jobs. You pause to wipe sweat, noticing the safety posters plastered on the walls. "Keep hands clear," one shouts, but accidents happen. You've heard whispers of fingers lost to presses, though nobody talks loud enough for the boss to hear. Unions are stirring. Strikes hit steel mills in 1919, but your shop's quiet for now. You're not sure about joining. The pay's steady, but the foremen watch like hawks. Joke number 2. They probably time your bathroom breaks with a stopwatch. You grab a wrench, thinking about the speakeasy you hit last weekend. That gin's memory keeps you going. Lunchtime's a brief escape. You sit on a crate, unwrapping a sandwich bologna on rye, same as yesterday. Workers swap stories, some about baseball, others about bootleggers dodging cops. Prohibition's a running gag. Everyone knows someone who knows someone with a still. You sip lukewarm coffee from a thermos, eyeing the new guy, barely 16, hauling scrap metal. Child labor's fading laws are tightening, but kids still slip through. You feel a pang. He should be in school, not here. The whistle blows too soon, and you're back on the line, the belt's relentless churn dragging you in. The factory's not just work, it's a microcosm. You see women at the far end, assembling small parts. They're rare. Most are secretaries or housewives, but their numbers are growing. You overhear a debate about wages. Some say women get half what men earn for the same job. It's unfair, but nobody's storming the boss's desk. You tighten another bolt, thinking about the suburbs you passed through this morning. That quiet life feels distant here, where noise and motion rule. The city's heartbeat is this factory, pumping out goods for a nation obsessed with newness, new cars, new gadgets, new dreams. As the shift drags, you notice the light shifting through high windows, dust motes dancing in the haze. You're tired, but there's pride in the work. This car you're building might end up in some suburban garage, driven by a flapper headed to a jazz club. You smile, imagining her honking at newsboys like you did last night. Joke number 3. Maybe she'll name the car after you, the unsung bolt tightener. The day's end is near, but the line keeps moving. You glance at your buddy, who's whistling now, mimicking the factory whistle. You're in this together, building America's future, one aching muscle at a time. You're slipping through a dim alley now, the city's pulse thumping behind you as you approach a nondescript door. It's midnight in 1922nd America, and you're hunting for a speakeasy, one of those secret bars born from Prohibition's iron grip. A soft knock, a whispered password, something silly like moonshine, and the door creaks open. Inside, the air's thick with cigarette smoke and the tang of illegal gin. Prohibition, that grand experiment kicked off by the 18th Amendment in 1920, has turned drinking into a game of cat and mouse, with over 100,000 speakeasies sprouting across cities by mid-decade. You're in one now, tucked in a Chicago basement or a New York backroom, where the law feels like a distant nuisance. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some speakeasies serve drinks in teacups, so if cops raid, you're just sipping tea. You chuckle, holding a cup of what's definitely not Earl Grey. Joke number 1. The only thing brewing here is trouble. Historians still argue whether Prohibition cut alcohol consumption or just made it more glamorous. But you're too busy soaking in the scene to care. The room's lit by flickering lamps, casting shadows on flappers in beaded dresses, their laughter sharp over a piano's ragtime. Men in suspenders lean close, swapping stories of bootleggers outrunning the feds. You sidle up to the bar, where a bartender with a sly grin pours something clear and potent. Homemade, he winks, meaning it's probably bathtub gin, distilled in someone's apartment. It burns going down, like liquid fire with a hint of juniper. You wince, but it's worth it for the thrill. The crowds are mixed bankers, rubbing elbows with factory workers, all equal under the speakeasy's unwritten code. You spot a woman in a cloche hat, her cigarette holder glinting as she debates jazz with a guy who looks like he just left a boardroom. The 1922nd are leveling the playing field, at least in these hidden dens. The music shifts, a saxophone wailing a slow tune. Couples sway, their moves looser than the Charleston you saw on the streets. You lean against a wall, nursing your drink, noticing the bar's decor mismatched chairs, a velvet curtain hiding who knows what. Speakeasies are theatres of rebellion, and you're playing your part. You overhear a guy bragging about a rum-running gig off the Jersey coast, dodging Coast Guard cutters. Smuggling's big business. By 1925, organised crime's raking in millions, with names like Al Capone whispered like urban legends. You smirk, thinking how you dodged a cop on the way here. Joke number 2. Maybe you're the real gangster for finding this place. The air's getting warmer, the crowd louder. A woman nearby spills her drink, giggling as her date mops it up with a handkerchief. You notice the bartender slip a bottle under the counter, probably in case of a raid. Speakeasies thrive on this edge, the thrill of breaking rules. You take another sip, feeling the gin's buzz, and think about the factory you left hours ago. That grind seems worlds away now, replaced by this smoky, secret escape. The piano player picks up the tempo, and a few flappers start dancing, their heels clicking on the worn floor. You're tempted to join, but your dancing's more likely to clear the room. You glance at a clock 2 a.m., but time's irrelevant here. Speakeasies don't sleep, and neither does the city. You overhear a debate about whether Prohibition's saving souls or just funding mobsters. It's a fair question. The law's pushed drinking underground, but it hasn't stopped it. You spot a guy in a corner, sketching the scene on a napkin. An artist, maybe, capturing the era's defiance. You're part of this moment, a fleeting rebellion against a world trying to stay prim. Joke number 3. If prohibition's about morals, why is this gin making you feel so holy? As you finish your drink, the bartender nods, offering a refill. You hesitate, knowing dawn's not far off. The speakeasy's a bubble, a place where the 1,922nd contradictions, freedom and control, wealth and risk collide. You think back to the suburban kitchen you woke in, its quiet order so different from this chaos. The city's got you now, pulling you deeper into its nightlife. You pocket a matchbook with the bar's fake name scrawled on it, a souvenir of this illicit night. The music swells, and you're ready to slip back into the alley, chasing the next adventure. You're huddled around a wooden box in a cozy living room, the faint glow of a single bulb casting shadows on the wallpaper. It's evening in 1,922nd America, and you're tuning a radio, its crackle and hiss filling the room like a living thing. Radio's the new heartbeat of the nation by 1925. Over 5 million households own one, and stations like KDKA in Pittsburgh are beaming voices across the country. You twist the dial, catching snippets of a crooner's ballad, a preacher's sermon, and a crackly ad for soap flakes. This is no factory grind or speakeasy thrill. You're in a suburban home again, maybe that same one from your quiet morning, but now it's alive with invisible waves. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some folks swear radios pick up ghost signals, random voices from nowhere, spooking late-night listeners. You laugh, imagining a spectral DJ haunting the airwaves. Joke number 1. Maybe it's just your neighbor's cat meowing into the mic. Historians still argue whether radio unified America's culture or fractured it by amplifying local voices, but you're too busy fiddling with the knobs to care. The static clears, and a jazz tune spills out, making your little sister tap her foot. The whole family's here, Dad in his armchair, Mom knitting, and you, the unofficial radio wrangler. The radio's a marvel, all tubes and wires, looking like something from a mad scientist's lab. You paid a hefty $50 for this set, a chunk of your factory wages, but it's worth it. It's not just music. You're hearing live baseball scores, political speeches, and even cooking tips from some cheery host in New York. You lean closer, catching a broadcast about Charles Lindbergh's latest flight stunt aviation's all the rage, and you dream of seeing a plane up close. The radio shrinks the world. A farmer in Iowa's hearing the same song as a banker in Manhattan. You glance out the window, where the suburban street lies quiet, but inside, the room buzzes with connection. You adjust the antenna, a spindly wire draped across the curtain rod, and the signal strengthens. Now it's a comedy show, some vaudeville act cracking corny jokes. You smirk, thinking how it's better than the speakeasy's gin-soaked chatter from last night. Joke number 2. At least the radio doesn't spill its drink on you. The family laughs at a punchline about Prohibition, and you notice Dad nodding along, his newspaper forgotten. Radio's changing how you spend evenings. No more silent dinners or endless card games. It's a window to the world, and you're hooked, even if the static makes you wince. The broadcast shifts to a news report, something about a stock market rally. Everyone's talking money these days, and you wonder if you should buy a share or two. The radio's full of ads too, Pepsi. Cola's new jingle is catchy, promising twice as much for a nickel. You roll your eyes, everything's a sales pitch. But there's magic in the voices. Especially when a singer like Bessie Smith comes on, her voice raw and soulful. You close your eyes, picturing the Harlem clubs you've only heard about. Radio's your ticket there, no train fare needed. Your little brother begs to change the station, whining for a bedtime story program. You oblige, finding a kids' show with a narrator spinning tales of cowboys and pirates. It's a far cry from the factory's clang or the speakeasy's smoke, but it's just as much a part of the 1,922nd. You think about the city streets you walked, alive with jazz and rebellion, and how this radio ties it all together. The suburbs feel less isolated now, like you're part of something bigger. Joke number 3. Maybe the radio's the real speakeasy. sneaking stories into every home. As the program ends, a soft piano tune plays, perfect for winding down. You glance at Mom, who's dozing off, her knitting needles still. The radio's glow feels like a fireplace, warm and inviting, but you know it's a machine, not magic. Still, it's changed how you see the world. America's no longer just your street or your city. It's everywhere the signal reaches. You turn the volume low, letting the music hum like that fan you left on for background noise. The night's settling in, and you're content, but part of you wonders what's next, maybe a drive in that Model T you've been eyeing. You're gripping the steering wheel of a Model T, its engine rattling like a tin can full of marbles as you bounce along a freshly paved road. It's a sunny afternoon in 1922nd America, and you're out for a drive, maybe heading to a picnic or just cruising to feel the wind. Cars are king now by 1925. Ford's churned out over 10 million Model Ts, and nearly 1 in 2 American households owns a vehicle. You're part of the car culture revolution, trading horse-drawn buggies for this clunky black beast that smells of gasoline and freedom. The road stretches past suburban homes and open fields, and you honk at a kid chasing a stray dog, grinning at the sheer thrill of motion. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some folks treat their cars like pets, giving them names like Betsy or Old Reliable. You pat the dashboard, wondering if your Tin Lizzie deserves a nickname. Joke number 1. Maybe call it Rattles, since it shakes like it's dancing the Charleston. Historians still argue whether cars liberated Americans or chained them to debt and traffic jams, but right now, you're too busy dodging potholes to care. The Model T's no luxury ride top speeds about 45 miles an hour, and you're cranking the hand starter every time it stalls, which is often. You adjust your goggles. Dust's a menace on these half-paved roads, and check the fuel gauge, a stick you dip into the tank. Gas is cheap, about 20 cents a gallon, but you're still careful. Factory wages don't stretch far. The car's a status symbol, though. Back in the suburbs, neighbours eyed your Model T with envy, and you felt a smug twinge parking it by your picket fence. You pass a billboard advertising Goodyear tires, its bold letters promising a smoother ride. You snort, thinking nothing could smooth this bone-rattling trip. Still, you love it, the open road, the hum of the engine, the sense you could go anywhere. Traffic's light, but you're not alone. Other Model Ts chug along, plus a few fancier cars, Packards or Buicks driven by folks with deeper pockets. You wave at a family in a nearby sedan, their kids squished in back with a picnic basket. Sunday drives are a 1,922nd ritual, a chance to escape the city's speakeasies or the factory's grind. Some head to amusement parks or lakes. You're aiming for a meadow you heard about, perfect for a sandwich and a nap. The radio's still in your mind, its jazz tunes echoing, but out here, the only soundtrack is the engine's sputter and the occasional moo from a roadside cow. You pull over to check a map, unfolding it across the seat. Roads are tricky highways like the Lincoln are new, but many are still dirt paths, unmarked and muddy after rain. You're no explorer, but navigating feels adventurous, like you're charting the country yourself. Joke number 2. Columbus had it easier. At least he didn't need a spare tire. You think back to the speakeasy's smoky thrill. How different this is. Daylight, fresh air, and no cops sniffing for gin. Cars are reshaping America, carving suburbs from farmland and shrinking distances. Cities feel closer now. You could drive to a jazz club tonight if you crank the engine again. The car's not just freedom, it's work too. You pass a gas station, where an attendant in overalls pumps fuel and offers to check your oil. You nod, noticing the station's sign, fill up and smile. You smirk, thinking how Ford's assembly line, where you tightened bolts, made this car possible. Mass production's the 1,922nd magic trick, putting wheels under millions. But it's not all rosy. You've heard of accidents, cars flipping on sharp turns, no seatbelts to save you, and debt's a trap. Plenty buy cars on credit, praying their jobs hold. You hit the road again, the Model T's rumble, a familiar comfort. A roadside diner catches your eye, its neon sign promising pie and coffee. You're tempted but keep driving. The meadow's close now. You think about the suburbs, the radio, the factory, all pieces of this decade's puzzle. Cars tie them together, letting you slip between worlds. Joke number 3. Maybe the Model T's the real time machine, bouncing you from city to country in an afternoon. As the sun dips, you spot your destination, a green patch perfect for stretching out. You park, the engine ticking as it cools, and step out, ready to trade horsepower for a lazy hour. You're settled into a plush seat in a smoky theatre, the air buzzing with anticipation as a projector hums to life. It's a Saturday night in 1922nd America, and you're in a picture palace, one of thousands sprouting up across the country, over 20,000 movie theatres by 1925, drawing millions weekly. The lights dim, and a silent film flickers onto the screen, its black and white images dancing to a live pianist's ragtime. You're here for escape, trading the Model T's rattle and the speakeasy's gin for a world of melodrama and slapstick. The screen's glow pulls you in, and you're lost in a story of romance or adventure, the kind that makes the 1922nd feel larger than life. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some theatres hire explainers to narrate silent films for confused audiences, shouting plot points over the music. You glance at the guy in the corner, mouthing along with the screen, and stifle a laugh. Joke number 1. He's basically your nosy neighbour, but with a paycheck. Historians still argue whether silent films shaped a shared American identity or just fed escapism, but you're too busy munching popcorn 10 cents a bag to care. The film's a Charlie Chaplin comedy, and his tramp character's waddle gets a chuckle from the crowd, including the kid next to you, who's sneaking candy from his sister's purse. The theatre's a spectacle itself, all velvet curtains and gilded chandeliers, a far cry from the factory's grit or your suburban porch. You're in a city, maybe Los Angeles, where Hollywood's churning out films like Ford makes cars. The industry's booming. By mid-decade, movies gross over $1 billion annually, and stars like Clara Bow and Rudolph Valentino are household names. You watch a title card flash, "Will she escape the villain?" and lean forward, caught up in the drama. The pianist's fingers fly, matching the chase scene's pace. You're hooked, even if the plot's predictable. It's not just entertainment. It's a window into dreams, glamour, danger, love all bigger than your daily grind. You glance around, noticing the crowd's mix. Couples on dates, families, even a few solo folks like you, all staring at the same flickering light. Movies are democratic that way, cheaper than a speakeasy's gin at 25 cents a ticket. You think back to the radio's crackle, how it brought voices into your home. This is different, visual, immersive. The screen shows a city skyline, not unlike the one you walked through, but glossier, unreal. You smirk, imagining yourself dodging villains instead of streetcars. Joke number 2. If life's a movie, you're still waiting for your close-up. The film shifts to a love scene, and the audience sighs. You notice a woman fanning herself with a program, her bobbed hair gleaming under the lights. Fashion's everywhere. Even here, flapper dresses and fedoras pack the seats. You're in a suit yourself, feeling sharp, though the cigarette smoke's making your eyes water. The theatre's a social hub, where folks gossip before the show or flirt in the lobby. You overheard a debate about whether Valentino's really as dreamy as the posters claim. You're not sure, but the swooning lady next to you seems convinced. As the film ends, the pianist strikes a final chord, and applause ripples through. You linger, watching credits roll, no sound, just text and music. The silence feels odd after the speakeasy's noise or the Model T's roar, but it's soothing, like that fan humming back home. You think about the factory, the radio, the road, all pieces of this decade's whirlwind. Movies wrap them up in fantasy, letting you forget the bolt-tightening or the bootlegger's risks. Joke number 3. Maybe Chaplin's tramp could teach you how to dodge the boss's glare on Monday. You step outside, the night air cool against your skin. The theatre's marquee glows, promising another show tomorrow, maybe a western or a romance. You're tempted to come back, But for now, the city's calling. You pass a newsstand, headlines shouting about Hollywood scandals, and smile. The silver screen's magic lingers, making the real world feel a little brighter, a little bigger. You're not a star, but tonight, you feel like you could be, striding down the street with a story still playing in your head. You're swaying to the pulse of a trumpet, the air thick with sweat and perfume in a Harlem nightclub. It's late in 1922nd America, and you're in the heart of the jazz age, where music is the lifeblood of the night. Clubs like the Cotton Club or Savoy Ballroom draw crowds with their raw, electric sound. By 1925, jazz is America's soundtrack, born from African American communities, and now spilling into every corner of the country. You're shoulder to shoulder with dancers, their feet flying in the Lindy Hop, a dance as wild as the saxophones wail. The room's a haze of cigarette smoke and dim lights, but the energy's electric, pulling you into the rhythm. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some clubs have cutting contests, where musicians duel with their instruments, improvising until one outshines the other. You watch a trumpeter and a pianist trade riffs, each note sharper than the last, and grin at the crowd's cheers. Joke number 1. It's like a fist fight, but with better melodies. Historians still argue whether jazz unified diverse Americans or highlighted racial divides, since black artists often play for segregated audiences. You push that thought aside, letting the music, a Duke Ellington tune, maybe carry you away. The club's alive, a world apart from the factory's clang or the suburban radio's hum. You're in Harlem, where the Renaissance is blooming, not just in music but in poetry and art. You sip a drink probably smuggled, thanks to that speakeasy know-how, and scan the room. Flappers in sequin dresses twirl with men in sharp suits, their moves defying gravity. You're no dancer, but your foot taps, betraying you. The band's relentless, drums pounding like the city's heartbeat. You spot a couple doing the black bottom, their hips swinging in sync, and wonder if you could pull that off without tripping. You lean against a wall, the plaster cool under your palm, and take it all in. Jazz isn't just music, it's rebellion, a middle finger to the stuffy rules of the past. You think back to the silent film's melodrama, how it felt staged compared to this raw energy. Here, the crowd's a mix, black and white, rich and working class, though the best clubs are often black-owned yet white-patronized, a tension you can't ignore. You overhear a guy talking about Louis Armstrong, calling him a genius. You nod, remembering a radio broadcast of his horn, sharp and soulful. The night's young, but you're already buzzing not from gin, but from the vibe. You step onto the dance floor, emboldened by the crowd, and give the Charleston a clumsy try. A woman laughs, not unkindly, and shows you a step. You're no pro, but it feels good, like you're part of something bigger. Joke number 2. Maybe your dancing's why they invented the term hot mess. The music shifts, slower now, and you catch your breath, watching a singer take the stage. Her voice, rich and mournful, quiets the room, reminding you of Bessie Smith's records crackling through your radio. You think about the city streets you walked, the Model T you drove, the speakeasy's thrill, all leading here, to this moment. Jazz ties it together, a sound that's everywhere, from dive bars to Broadway. You notice a poet in the corner, scribbling on a napkin, maybe Langston Hughes capturing this very scene. The 1922nd are a paradox Prohibition's grip, yet this freedom in music. You sway, feeling the beat in your bones, and wonder how anyone could stay still. The factories grind, the suburbs calm, they're distant now, drowned out by the band's crescendo. As the song ends, the crowd roars, and you clap, your hands stinging. You're tempted to stay all night, but the clock's ticking 3 a.m., and you've got to drive home. You slip outside, the cool air a shock after the club's heat. The street's quiet, but you hear jazz echoing in your head, like that radio's hum. Joke number 3. Maybe you'll dream in syncopation tonight. Harlem's alive behind you, and as you walk, you carry its rhythm, a piece of the 1922nd soul that no law or factory whistle can tame. You're standing in a dress shop, surrounded by mirrors and mannequins, draped in shimmering fabrics. It's a crisp afternoon in 1922nd America, and you're caught up in the flapper fashion frenzy, where style is as bold as the jazz you danced to last night. The shop's buzzing women flip through racks of dresses, their hems scandalously above the knee, a sharp break from the ankle-length gowns of a decade ago. By 1925, the fashion industry's booming, with clothing sales hitting millions, as women embrace the flapper-look bobbed hair, cloche hats, and beads that jingle with every step. You hold up a fringed dress, its sequins catching the light, and wonder if you've got the nerve to wear it. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some flappers sew bells into their hemlines to jingle louder at dances, turning heads with every shimmy. You smirk, imagining the racket at a crowded club. Joke number 1. It's like wearing a cat toy to a Charleston contest. Historians still argue whether flapper fashion was pure rebellion or a clever marketing ploy by department stores, but you're too busy eyeing a silk scarf to care. The shop girl, her own hair bobbed sharp, suggests a headband with a feather, and you're tempted, she says, it's all the rage in Paris. You run your fingers over a dress's beaded fringe, feeling the weight of the era's shift. Women's fashion is a revolution. Corsets are out, replaced by loose, boyish silhouettes that let you move, dance, breathe. You think back to the Harlem Club, where flappers spun like fireflies, their dresses flashing under dim lights. Here, the shop smells of lavender and new fabric, a far cry from the speakeasy's smoke or the factory's oil. You try on a cloche hat, its snug fit framing your face, and catch your reflection. You look modern, like you belong in a movie or a jazz joint. The shop's crowded with women your age, giggling over stockings that roll down just right. You overhear a debate about whether short skirts are immoral. Some churches still preach against them, but the flappers don't care. You don't either. The freedom's intoxicating. You pick up a pair of T-strap shoes. Their heels low enough for dancing, but sharp enough to feel chic. The price tag stings $5, half a day's factory wages, but you're saving up, maybe from skipping those movie tickets last week. You smile, remembering Chaplin's Tramp waddling on the screen, and think how this dress might steal the show. Fashion's not just about looks, it's power. You notice a woman buying a suit, yes, a suit, tailored and sharp, for office work, or maybe just to make a point. Women are pushing boundaries, voting now, working more, and their clothes shout it. You think about the radio's ads, pushing modern styles, and the Model T you drove, which let you zip to shops like this. It's all connected cars, jazz, movies, and now this dress that feels like a declaration. Joke number 2. Maybe the real prohibition is on boring clothes. You step outside, clutching a paper bag with that headband you couldn't resist. The street's alive with women in similar outfits, bobbed hair bouncing, pearls swinging. Men tip their fedoras, some approving, others tesking like your grandma did at your rolled stockings. You laugh, thinking how she'd faint at this shop's display. The 1922nd are rewriting the rules, and you're wearing them. You pass a tailor's window, where a sign boasts custom flapper frocks in 24 hours. Speed's everything now. Fast cars, fast music, fast fashion. You're part of it, strutting like you own the sidewalk. As you head home, you imagine wearing this headband to the next jazz club, maybe even catching a cutting contest like last night's. The city's changing you, from the suburbs' quiet to this bold new skin. Joke number 3. If your dress jingles louder than the band, you're doing it right. You glance at a newsstand, where a magazine cover shows a flapper mid-twirl, and feel a spark of pride. You're not just dressing the part, you're living it. One bead, one feather, one defiant step at a time. You're ducking through a shadowy warehouse, the air heavy with the sharp scent of whiskey barrels and damp wood. It's the dead of night in 1922nd America, and you're tangled up in Prohibition's secret games, running with bootleggers who keep the speakeasies stocked. The 18th Amendment's ban on alcohol has spawned a black market empire by 1925. Illegal liquor is a $3 billion industry, and you're brushing up against its edges. Maybe you're just a curious tag-along, Or maybe you're hauling crates for extra cash. But either way, you're in deep, heart-pounding as you listen for sirens. The city's asleep, but this world's wide awake, fueled by defiance and greed. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some bootleggers hide booze in hollowed-out loaves of bread to sneak past cops. You stifle a laugh, picturing a loaf leaking gin on a patrolman's shoes. Joke number 1. Nothing says fresh baked like a whiskey crust. Historians still argue whether Prohibition fueled organized crime or just exposed its roots, but you're too busy watching your step to care. A guy named Joey, all slick hair and sharper eyes, motions you to stack crates labeled molasses against the wall. You know better those barrels hold moonshine, probably cooked in a backwoods still. The warehouse is a maze of shadows, lit by a single flickering bulb. You hear a creak and freeze, thinking it's the feds, but it's just a rat scurrying past. Joey whispers about a shipment headed to that speakeasy you slipped into, the one with teacup cocktails. You smirk, remembering the gin's burn, and now you're seeing how it got there. Bootlegging's a high-stakes game. Rum runners smuggle rum from the Caribbean, while others truck whiskey from Canada. You've heard of Al Capone's Chicago outfit, moving thousands of gallons weekly, and Joey's crew is a small cog in that machine. You lift a crate, your arms straining, and wonder how much is profit and how much is risk. You pause to catch your breath, leaning against a barrel. The air's thick with the sweet, sour smell of fermenting grain, a far cry from the dress shop's lavender or the jazz club's perfume. You think back to the Model T you drove, how it could be hauling this stuff instead of picnic baskets. Cars are bootleggers' lifelines fast. Fords outrun police sedans on back roads. You grin, imagining yourself behind the wheel, dodging a roadblock. Joke number 2. Maybe your Tin Lizzie's got a secret career as a moonshine mule. Joey hands you a flask as payment, a quick swig of something that tastes like fire and regret. You cough, and he laughs, saying it's the good stuff. Prohibition's turned everyone into a chemist bathtub gin, Applejack, even homemade wine from backyard grapes. You've heard stories of bad batches blinding folks, but you take another sip anyway. The warehouse hums with quiet workmen load trucks, their whispers sharp with urgency. You spot a woman in the corner, tallying numbers in a ledger. Women run with bootleggers too, some as drivers, others as lookouts. You nod to her, and she winks, like you're all in on the same secret. The night's tense, but there's a thrill in it, like dancing the Charleston or watching a Chaplin film. You're breaking the law, sure, but so's half the country. Prohibition's more suggestion than rule. You think about the radio's sermons, preaching temperance, and laugh under your breath. The real sermon's here, in the clink of bottles and the creak of crates. You help Joey cover the load with a tarp, hiding it for the drive to a speakeasy drop. Joke number 3. If the cops ask, you're just delivering holy water for the church. As you slip out into the alley, the city's quiet, save for a distant car horn. You feel the flask in your pocket, a souvenir of this outlaw night. The speakeasies glow, the jazz clubs beat, the dress shops sparkle. They're all tied to this underground trade. You're not a gangster, but tonight, you're close enough to feel the rush. The stars are out, and you head home, the warehouse fading behind you, its secrets safe until the next run. You're trudging through a dusty field, the sun high and unrelenting, your boots sinking into the soft earth of rural America. It's a summer day in the 1922nd, far from the city's jazz clubs and speakeasies, where life moves slower, tied to the rhythms of the land. Farms still cover much of the country. Over 30% of Americans live rurally in 1925, though the urban tide's pulling folks away. You're on a family farm, maybe in Iowa or Kansas, where the air smells of hay and manure, and the only soundtrack is the hum of cicadas and the creak of a windmill. The Roaring Twenties feel distant here, where old ways clash with the new. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some farmers use dynamite to dig post holes for fences, a loud shortcut that spooks the cows. You chuckle, imagining a blast sending chickens scattering. Joke number 1. Nothing says rural charm like an explosion at dawn. Historians still argue whether rural America resisted modernization or quietly adapted, but you're too busy hauling a bucket of water to care. The farm's a world of its own acres of corn, stretched to the horizon, and you're helping with chores, from milking cows to mending a fence that's seen better days. You pause to wipe sweat, leaning on a pitchfork. The farmhouse nearby is weathered but sturdy, its porch sagging under the weight of years. Your family, maybe you're a kid home for summer or a hired hand, relies on this land. The 1,922nd aren't as kind to farmers as to city folk. Crop prices are dropping, and mechanized tractors, pricey at $400, are tempting but out of reach for many. You spot a horse-drawn plow, still in use, and think of the Model T zipping along city roads. Out here, horses outnumber cars, and you're more likely to hear a rooster than a radio. You head to the barn, where the air's cooler, thick with the scent of straw. A kid your cousin maybe feeds chickens, tossing grain like he's sowing dreams. You remember the radio's crackle, how it brought jazz to your suburbs. But here, news comes from neighbors or a weekly paper. You grab a sack of feed, your arms aching like they did in the factory. Farming's no easier than tightening bolts, it's just quieter. You overhear your uncle grumbling about city slickers and their newfangled ways, electric lights, flapper dresses. He's not wrong. The dress shop sequins feel like another planet. Yet change is creeping in. You notice a Sears catalogue on the kitchen table, its pages dog-eared with dreams of electric churns or mail-order shoes. Some farmers are buying radios, powered by batteries since rural lines lack electricity. You smirk, thinking of the ghost signals you laughed about in the suburbs. Joke number 2. Maybe out here, the ghosts are just bored cows lowing into the ether. You help stack hay, the work grounding you, but your mind wanders to the speakeasy's thrill, the jazz club's pulse. Rural life's steady, but it's losing ground to the city's pull. Dinner's a simple affair. Cornbread, beans, and a slice of ham, eaten on a porch as the sun dips. You listen to your aunt talk about the county fair, where folks show off prize pigs and homemade pies. It's a community lifeline, drawing families from miles around. You think of the bootlegger's warehouse, its illicit crates, and how moonshine's brewed in these hills too, hidden in barns. Prohibition's reach is long, even here. You sip lemonade, tart and cool, and watch fireflies blink. The city's jazz and movies feel like stories from another life, but you're curious, maybe you'll visit again soon. As night falls, you lie in a creaky bed, the house silent save for crickets outside. Rural America's holding on, but you feel the tug of progress. Tractors, radios, cars. You're caught between worlds, like the nation itself. Joke number 3. Maybe the real crop out here is dreams of city lights. You drift off. The farm's quiet, a balm after the factory's clang and the speakeasy's chaos. But part of you wonders what's next, a train to the city or another day in the fields. You're standing in a crowded brokerage office, the air buzzing with nervous excitement as men in suits scribble numbers on chalkboards. It's a bustling day in 1,922nd America, and you're caught up in stock market fever, where everyone's betting on a soaring economy. By 1925, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is climbing up over 100% since the decade began, and ordinary folks like you are pouring savings into stocks, dreaming of quick riches. The office smells of ink, cigar smoke, and ambition, with typewriters clacking and telephones ringing off the hook. You clutch a newspaper, its financial page dog-eared, wondering if you should buy shares in General Motors or RCA. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some brokers peddle stocks door to door, like vacuum cleaner salesmen, convincing housewives to invest their egg money. You smirk, imagining a slick talker charming your suburban neighbor into buying radio shares. Joke number 1. Maybe he threw in a free toaster to seal the deal. Historians still argue whether the stock market boom was a sign of real prosperity or a bubble waiting to pop, but right now, the room's alive with optimism. You overhear a guy boasting about doubling his money on Ford stock, and you're tempted your factory wages could use a boost. The brokerage is a circus. Men in vests, shout orders, their faces flushed as stock tickers spit out paper ribbons like confetti. You watch a clerk update prices, the chalk squeaking with every jump. Everyone's talking margin, borrowing money to buy stocks, a trick that's making millionaires overnight. You've got $50 saved, enough for a share or two, but the risk makes your stomach twist. You think back to the rural farm, where wealth was measured in corn and cows, not paper promises. Here, it's all numbers, and the crowd's betting America's only going up. You step closer to a ticker machine, its clicks hypnotic. The guy next to you, a bank teller by his look, mutters about easy money. You nod, remembering the radio's ads promising wealth through stocks, just like they pushed Pepsi or flapper dresses. The 1922nd are about speed, fast cars, fast music, fast money. You glance at a poster touting, invest in America's future, and feel the pull. The speakeasy's thrill, the jazz club's pulse, even the Model T's rumble, they're all fueled by this same giddy belief in tomorrow. But there's a whisper of doubt. You've read about market corrections, shaking out small timers like you. You decide to buy one share, handing over your cash to a broker with a grin too wide. He promises big returns, and you half believe him. The paperwork's done in a flash, and you're now part owner of a company you barely understand. Joke number 2. You're practically Henry Ford now, minus the mustache. You pocket the receipt, feeling like you've joined the game. The room's energy is contagious, but you notice a few older men in the corner, their faces grim, muttering about overheated markets. You shrug it off, everyone's a skeptic until they're rich. As you leave, the street feels different, like you're carrying a secret. You pass a newsboy hawking papers with headlines about soaring stocks and new skyscrapers. The city's betting on itself, just like you are. You think of the bootlegger's warehouse, where risk meant dodging cops, not losing savings. This feels riskier, somehow. The flapper dress you admired, the movie theater's glow, they're all tied to this money chase. You wonder if your share will buy you a new Model T or just a headache. Joke number 3. Maybe you'll frame the stock certificate as modern art when it tanks. The day's fading, and you head home, the brokerage's buzz still in your ears. You're part of the 1922nd dream machine now, for better or worse. The stock market's a gamble, but so's everything else: drinking illegal gin, dancing till dawn, or driving a rattling car. You glance at the sky, hoping your bet pays off, but deep down, you know the game's just getting started. You're standing in a polling station, the air thick with the scent of ink and old wood, clutching a ballot that feels like a small revolution. It's 1925-inch America, and you're a woman, voting for the first time, tasting the newfound freedoms of the 1922nd. The 19th Amendment, ratified in 1920, gave women the right to vote, a seismic shift that sent over 8 million women to the polls by mid-decade. You're in a small town hall, or maybe a city precinct, surrounded by other women, some nervous, some defiant, marking their ballots with pencils that tremble from pride or inexperience. The weight of the moment hits you. This is power, but it's not without limits. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some women carry voting purses, stuffed with pamphlets to remind them how to mark ballots, a fad born from fear of messing up. You pat your own bag, grinning at the crumpled guide inside. Joke number 1. It's less a purse and more a democracy survival kit. Historians still argue whether the 19th Amendment sparked true equality or just cracked the door open, but you're too focused on the ballot to care. You check a box for a local candidate, your hands steady, and feel a spark. Your voice matters, even if the world's not ready to listen fully. The room's a mix of faces, young flappers with bobbed hair, older women in long skirts, all united by this act. You notice a man at the door, a poll watcher, eyeing the crowd like he's not sure women belong here. You smirk, thinking of the flapper dress you tried on. Its beads are rebellion in themselves. Voting's another kind of defiance, louder than any Charleston step. You overhear whispers about candidates. Some women debate a senator's stance on prohibition, others just want better schools. You're voting for a mayor who promises more streetlights, a small choice that feels huge. Outside, the world hasn't caught up. Women can vote, but you're still paid less in factories, sometimes half a man's wage for the same work. You think back to the factory's clatter, where women assembled parts but rarely climbed the ranks. Even in the speakeasy, men called the shots, pouring gin while women danced. Yet here, your mark on the ballot is equal. You drop it into the box, the thud satisfying, and catch a woman's eye, she nods, like you're both in on a secret. The 1922nd are rewriting rules, but it's slow, like a Model T climbing a hill. You step into the street, where a campaign poster flaps in the breeze. Some men tip their hats, others mutter about women meddling. You laugh, remembering the jazz club's energy freedom's a fight, whether it's dancing or voting. The radio's been buzzing with suffrage talk, and you recall a broadcast praising women's new influence. It's not just politics. You're seeing women in offices, driving cars, even running bootleg gigs. Joke number 2. Maybe next, you'll smuggle votes instead of whiskey. The thought's thrilling, but you know change is a grind. Courts still limit women's rights, and old traditions die hard. As you walk, you pass a group of women handing out flyers, urging others to vote next election. Their energy's infectious, like the stock market fever you felt in the brokerage. But this feels deeper, less fleeting. You think of the rural farm, where your aunt probably voted for the first time too, her calloused hands marking a ballot instead of a plough. The city's push for progress, jazz, movies, cars, fuels this moment, but it's your choice that makes it real. You're not just a flapper or a factory worker, you're a citizen, and that's a quiet power. The day's fading, and you head home, the ballot's weight lingering in your mind. You pass a newsstand, where a headline touts women's votes swinging a local race. You smile, feeling part of something bigger, like the jazz band's rhythm or the movie's glow. Joke number 3. If men think women's votes are trouble, wait till they see your next dance move. The 1922nd are yours now, not just in style or sound, but in voice. You're ready to use it again, whether at the polls or in the streets, where the fight for freedom's just beginning. You're perched on a wooden bleacher, the roar of a crowd washing over you like a summer storm. It's a sweltering afternoon in 1922nd America, and you're at a baseball game, cheering for a home run as the crack of a bat echoes through the stadium. Baseball's the nation's obsession by 1925. Over 10 million fans pack ballparks yearly, and heroes like Babe Ruth are gods in pinstripes. You're in a city like New York or Boston, munching peanuts, their shells crunching underfoot as the Yankees or Red Sox take the field. The air smells of hot dogs and sweat, and you're swept up in the thrill, a far cry from the speakeasy's smoke or the polling station's quiet. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fans bring megaphones to shout their own play-by-play, drowning out the official announcer. You spot a guy bellowing, "Swing, ya bum!" and grin, tempted to join in. Joke number 1. He's louder than the Model T you drove here. Historians still argue whether baseball unified Americans across class and race, or just mirrored the era's divisions, but you're too busy yelling as Ruth steps to the plate to care. The Babe's a legend, smashing 41 home runs in 1923 alone, and you're hoping for another today. The stadium's a carnival of noise and colour. Kids wave pennants, vendors hawk scorecards for a dime, and couples share sodas, their straws tangled. You're in a straw hat, feeling the sun on your neck, and the crowd's energy pulls you in. Baseball's more than a game. It's a ritual, tying the rural fields you ploughed to the city's concrete jungle. You think back to the radio, how it brought live games to your suburban living room. But nothing beats this, the dust, the cheers, the anticipation as the pitcher winds up. You crunch another peanut, tossing the shell, and feel like you're part of America's heartbeat. Ruth swings, and the ball soars, a white speck against the blue sky. The crowd leaps, screaming as it clears the fence. You're on your feet, hat flying, voice hoarse. It's a homer, and the stadium shakes. You high-five a stranger, a factory worker by his calloused hands, and laugh. This is why you came not just for the game, but for the connection. You think of the flapper dress you tried on, its beads flashing like Ruth's bat, and the stock market's buzz, where bets are placed on companies, not players. Baseball's a safer gamble, or so it feels. The game rolls on, innings blending into a lazy rhythm. You notice a few black fans in the stands, cheering just as loud, though they're barred from major leagues. The Negro Leagues thrive, with stars like Satchel Paige, and you've heard their games are just as electric. You wish you could see one, but segregation's a stubborn shadow, even here. You sip a cola, its fizz sharp, and think of the bootlegger's warehouse, where risks were darker. Joke number 2. Maybe Ruth's secret is a swig of moonshine before batting. Between innings, kids scramble for foul balls, and you overhear a debate about whether Ruth's better than Ty Cobb. It's the kind of argument that fuels barbershops and speakeasies alike. You lean back, watching clouds drift, and feel the 1,922nd contradictions freedom in the stands, limits on the field. The radio's voice, the jazz club's pulse, the voting booth's power, they're all part of this moment, where a game becomes a mirror for the nation. You cheer as a rookie steals a base, his grin infectious, and wonder if you'll tell your kids about this day. As the game ends, the crowd thins, leaving peanut shells and memories. You linger, watching players jog off, Ruth's broad shoulders unmistakable. The stadium's glow fades, but you carry it with you, like the jazz tune still humming in your head. Joke number 3. If life's a game, you're just hoping for a home run before the 9th inning. You head out, the city waiting, its skyline promising more heroes, more dreams, more days like this one. You're standing on a city rooftop, the cool evening breeze carrying the faint hum of traffic below. It's 1,925, and you're gazing at America's skyline, a jagged silhouette of skyscrapers that gleam like promises against the golden glow of dusk. The 1,922nd have built a new world by mid-decade. Buildings like New York's Chrysler Building are rising, symbols of a nation reaching for the stars. You're in a metropolis, maybe Chicago or Manhattan, where steel and ambition stretch higher each year. The city's alive, its lights flickering like the jazz notes you danced to in Harlem, and you're dreaming of a future that feels boundless. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some skyscrapers have skyboys, workers who dangle on beams to polish windows, fearless as circus acrobats. You spot one far below, a speck against the glass, and shake your head. Joke number 1. They're either brave or just forgot how gravity works. Historians still argue whether these skyscrapers were monuments to progress or vanity projects for the rich. But you're too awestruck to care. You lean on the railing, the city sprawling beneath you, factories, speakeasies, ballparks all stitched together by the decade's restless energy. The skyline's a testament to the 1,922nd boom. Construction employs thousands, and buildings like the Woolworth, at 792 feet, dwarf the tenements you passed on your first city night. You think back to that chaotic street, where flappers and newsboys set the stage for this era. Now, from up here it's quieter, the clatter of streetcars and Model Ts softened to a murmur. You pull your coat tighter, the air sharp, and feel the weight of everything you've seen: the factories grind, the speakeasies thrill, the voting booths power. This skyline holds it all, a canvas for America's dreams. You spot a neon sign blinking below, advertising a new radio model, and smile, remembering the crackle of your suburban set. Radio, cars, movies, they're the threads weaving this decade together, and the skyscrapers are their crown. You think of the stock market's fever, how you bet a week's wages on a share, hoping to ride this wave. The city's a gamble, but from here, it looks like a sure thing. You imagine the rural farm, its fields so far from these towers, and wonder if your uncle's seen a skyline like this. Probably not, he'd call it a waste of good steel. The wind picks up, carrying a faint jazz tune from a club below. You hum along, your foot tapping like it did in Harlem. The 1,922nd are a paradox Prohibition's grip. Yet bootleggers thrive. Women vote, yet fight for respect. Baseball unites, but segregation lingers. You think of Babe Ruth's home run, the crowd's roar, and how it felt like America itself cheering. Joke number 2. Maybe these skyscrapers are just home runs in concrete form. You look out, seeing cranes dot the horizon, more buildings rising. The city's not done growing, and neither are you. You lean back, the rooftop's edge, a safe thrill, like the bootlegger's warehouse or the speakeasy's hidden door. The flapper dress you tried on, its beads catching the light, feels like it belongs up here, shining for the world to see. You're part of this voting, working, dancing, dreaming. The skyline's not just buildings, it's a story, yours included. You take a deep breath, the city's pulse syncing with your own. Joke number 3. If you squint, maybe you'll see your name in lights someday. As the sun dips, the skyline glows softer, like a painting fading into twilight. You're ready to head down, back to the streets where life hums jazz, cars, votes and all. The 1922nd have given you a front row seat to a world remaking itself, and you're not just watching, you're living it. The city's yours, from the factory floor to this rooftop perch, and every moment's a step towards something bigger. The lights below twinkle now, their edges blurring as night settles over the city. You feel your eyelids grow heavy. The day's adventures, fields, factories, speakeasies, and stadiums melting into a gentle hum. The skyline softens, its sharp lines fading into a dreamlike glow, like the last notes of a jazz tune drifting away. You're safe here, wrapped in the quiet rhythm of the 1922nd, where every street, every song, every vote carried a spark of possibility. Let the city's pulse slow, its sounds easing into a whisper, like the fan humming back home. Close your eyes, let the skyscrapers blur, and drift into sleep, carried by the decade's endless dreams.